Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Abdul Azeem from KMZ, and today we will be talking about the useState hook in React.js. So what is useState? The React useState is the most common hook which allows us to track state in a function component without having to convert them to classes. So in simple words, imagine this number, okay? So we will increment this number whenever we press this button. So how do we actually manage the state of this number? How do we actually re-render it? Whenever we press this button, it increments. So in order to do this, we use useState. So to make you understand more graphically, let's start coding. So I'm assuming you have already installed React. So your folder structure should look like this. So now in our source folder, we'll create a file and we'll call it counter.js. And in this file, we'll create a function and we'll export it as well. Export function. We'll call it counter. And this counter function will return a JSX. And in this JSX, we'll have a div which will contain a button. So this is the plus button. And outside this div, we will have another div which will have a number. So for now, we are going to hard code this number and later we will change it dynamically. So now for this, we need to go to our index.js and import a counter file. And instead of calling the app component, we will call a counter component and save it and go to the terminal. So now in a terminal, we will hit the command npm start, and this will basically start the application. So now your application should look like this. Here is the button that we've created, and this is the number that we have hard coded. So how do we actually manage the state? So now when I'm pressing the button, nothing's happening to it because there's no function that's being called or so whatsoever. So for this, we need to head to a counter.js, and here we need to import useState. Do that so by destructuring useState from React, and we invoke useState and we give this a value of 0. So we're not done here. We need to assign this value to something. So how do we actually assign this value? For this, we need to assign this value to a variable. For that, we need to assign it to an array. And this array is going to take two values. First is the variable that will store the value, and second is a function that will actually do the re-rendering thing and change the state. So it usually begins with state and it takes the name of this variable. So it's my case is going to be set counter. That's almost it. So for that, let's see what we have here. What's the value of counter? So when we save it and when we go to our browser, we see we have 0. Now, if I go to my code and change this value to 5 and save it and go back again to my browser, we'll see 5. So that is how we can initialize it with a value. So we'll initialize it with 0. And on this button, I'll add an onClick function. And to this function, I will set the counter. So this function will actually increment the number by 1. So this counter will get increased by 1 whenever this button is clicked. So now you save it and you go, you can see the number is being incremented. So this is pretty much how useState works. Also, this useState does not need to be an integer. So this value can be a string, also an array, and also an object. Also, useState can be invoked without providing it a value. So that is pretty much about the useState and its functionality. I would recommend you to read the React.js documentation for further depth in the useState functionality. And that's been my time, guys. I hope you've learned something from this video, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Thank you. Have a good day. Assalamu alaikum.